are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Well, we're a day late and a dollar short. This is what you get when you work with politicians. I don't know what else to say. I can talk all sorts of smack about Dave while I have him off screen. So yeah, no, we had some audio issues, folks, and we're streaming on a Saturday afternoon, so I expect we have like 2 people that'll show up. So it's but a big shout out to the new prisoners, by the way. They are restreaming this through their channel over on Rumble, and they are they're a solid group of people, and they do a lot of political commentary and philosophical in-depth discussion about geopolitics and U.S. politics, and they invited me onto their show tonight as well. So we're going to be it'll be a late night for TC. I'm used to going to bed by like 8:45 Central Time. So yeah, you guys will get to, that'll be fun for you guys. We might even stream it over here as well. But yeah, anyway, so I'm TC, this is Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, MBRR Media, and we're going to be talking to Dave Hughes about his run for Congress at the federal level, folks. Some of you are laughing because you know how I feel about federal politics these days, but Dave has a goal. He wants to unseat a deep stater, and when we say unseat a deep stater, yes, we mean that. So we're going to be finding out what Dave wants to do and why he wants to do it, and how and what his, well, he's not going to give us his strategy. Obviously, we can't expose that. But we are going to expose his philosophical leanings, which is why we titled this video Minnesota Massie, because, well, mostly we're just looking for a hook. That's what we do. We look for a hook to get people to tune in. But and by the way, and I'm not going to let him talk about this when I bring him on, but you know what he said to me before we started? I've never watched your show. But honestly, it's probably a good thing, because if he had watched my show, he probably wouldn't be doing the show. So, I mean, that's fair. It's fair, but he's not the only one, frankly, that has never watched my show. There are way too many people who haven't, and we're going to remedy that right now. We're going to tell you to share this out. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And if you like what I do and you want to support me, I could use some more channel memberships. And if you don't like to do channel memberships, you can always do a super chat or a super sticker during the show, especially if you have a question for Dave or for me. Sharing it out, like I said, is most helpful. We want as many people as possible to see this. Dave would like to get some traffic over to his campaign page, and I'd like to send it there, and you can find all of his links in the description. If you don't like to give money to Google to give to me, then you can always send me money directly to say, hey, thanks for doing what you do and keep up the fight, because what I get for revenue from YouTube and other sources helps keep the electricity and the internet on here. And if you know anything about the electricity and internet in Minnesota, it takes a lot of energy in the winter. It slows way down. You got to juice it up ahead of time. Got to heat up the internet in Minnesota, because it runs slow if you don't. But you can find me on Cash at $MBRR Media, and you can send support that way as well. Help me pay the bills. As you know, some of you have watched, gave up a lot for having a podcast, like 3/4 of my income for almost 13 years, right out the window when I started this podcast. And someday, if you get a chance, check out that story. But without any further ado, in the late start, we're going to chastise the politician in the room. Dave, thanks for being here. However it works, we got you on now on the phone.
Hi, TC.
So introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your background, and then I'll think of some really mean things to ask you.
Well, I'm Dave Hughes. I was born and raised in San Diego. Wanted to be an astronaut. In order to do that, you have to achieve certain milestones. So I became an Air Force officer through ROTC scholarship. Went to pilot training, became a pilot, and then test pilot school didn't happen, and everything else that falls from there to become an astronaut didn't happen. But while on active duty, I was stationed at Grand Forks Air Force Base flying the KC-135, and that's where I met my wife. And we got married and then moved around as the Air Force dictated. And after the tanker flew the C-21 Learjet, flying generals and admirals and one politician, a U.S. rep from Missouri, to some location, and then after that flew the MQ-9.
Like that to some location, like, and the U.S. rep from Missouri was never seen again. So what you're telling us is you flew him to Fort Huachuca and they made him disappear. So
it wasn't terribly exciting. It was Ike Skelton, who I think is not with us anymore, but flew him from Andrews Air Force Base back home to Whiteman Air Force Base, where the B-2s are stationed. And I recall that I dropped him off at the Air Force Base, and then he went on his way. But then after that, flew the MQ-9 Reaper.
Drop him off. It wasn't an airborne mission. He didn't just like kick him out the side of the plane, which really is how most of us feel about most politicians, honestly. So,
well,
it's hostile in here today, Dave. Hostile.
No, it's all right. But speaking of that, TC, I just want to correct you. I've never held office, so I guess I bristle, or maybe that's too strong of a word, but I just want your listeners and viewers to realize I've never held office. I'm a political outsider. So I don't think it's quite accurate to call me a politician already, but that's okay.
It's fun when I'm picking on you for, not watching my show, but that's, it's funny. You and I how did we even connect? I think it was Facebook, but I don't was it my original account that eventually got yeeted that we connected through and then reconnected when I had to start up a new one, or did we connect only when my new one started?
I'm thinking we connected through Facebook, maybe as long ago as 2020 when I was running for Congress for the third consecutive time, and maybe you were commenting on some of my posts or something.
Yeah, it might have been. I couldn't remember if it was back then originally, or if it was the second iteration of my Facebook life. So, but I do. So just, in the interest of full disclosure, Dave and I talk on a very regular basis, mostly, through text and whatnot. And we have solved all the world's problems, which is why when he told me he was officially announcing to run again, that I wanted first dibs to go ahead and just shoot his career in the foot right here out of the gate. We get the worst part of it out of the way, and then he can actually sit down with legitimate political commentators after me, and they can rescue his reputation. So, but so we share a lot of philosophical perspective, which is probably not encouraging for your friends and family to hear me say out loud, but we do have some pretty strong connections philosophically. You tend to be far more right-leaning libertarian in your perspective on a lot of things, and we've had some interesting conversations about subjects like Abraham Lincoln, and we've even had talked a little bit about Republican politics and some of the struggles within the Republican Party, which is one of the reasons why I'm interested in seeing your campaign kickoff. But you are up against it because you're running against an incumbent this year.
That's right. We had Collin Peterson for 30 years, and in 2000, U.S. Representative Michelle Fishbach, who was previously a state senator for 21 years, was the lieutenant governor for 11 months under Mark Dayton when Al Franken, resigned. Governor Dayton appointed Tina Smith to be the U.S. senator, so the lieutenant governorship vacated, and by the Minnesota Constitution, the president of the Senate had to fill that spot regardless of party. And so Fishbach became the lieutenant governor briefly. She tried to retain her Senate position for reasons unknown to me, And a court said, no, you can't hold on to both. So the court ordered her to resign her Senate position. So she filled out that 11 months, I guess, as the lieutenant governor. But then in 18, when we got Walz, she was out of a job. She could have, I guess, rerun for the Senate position, but I think Howe filled her spot, and he wouldn't have been friendly to that, and so she decided not to do that. And then she was recruited in the summer of 2019 to run for U.S. House because she was out of a job, and she really is a career politician. She had been a city council woman, I believe, for a few years before she ran for state senate. And now, by my count, TC, she's in her 32nd year, a consecutive year, give or take a few weeks, a few months, as a politician. So we replaced a 40-year career politician in Collin Peterson with a 32-year career politician in Michelle Fishbach. And it's not that I'm running because I think she's the devil, but I am running because I think she encompasses all of the bad that we always think of when it comes to a career politician, in terms of her voting record, in terms of her political and policy priorities. And that's why I'm running, because I believe my priorities are more in line with what is urgently facing the nation rather than what she seems to emphasize.
So let's just, I'm going to let you pick this. But I want to emphasize first that people need to, understand that there are some differences between the responsibilities of the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives. I think one of the biggest differences is that the House of Representatives predominantly is to focus on domestic issues. They're really there to focus on domestic issues, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. And at the same time that, the House of Representatives working with the Senate is supposed to hold sway over war powers, that, the executive is the commander in chief, but the House and the Senate are to, put checks and balances in place on the executive branch when it comes to war powers. And I know that we share some similarities when it comes to the never-ending war state that we are, or footing that we find ourselves in here in the U.S. Do you believe there's a difference in your perspective on that versus what Michelle has said and done in her time in the House of Representatives? Has she been vocal about war powers? Has she been vocal about the never-ending wars? And what's your position on that?
Well, first of all, here right now is the first time I've ever heard anyone in my entire life make a distinction between the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House, that the Senate should have more focus on foreign relations and international affairs than the House should. I'm not saying you're wrong, TC. I'm just saying I've never heard that. I've never read that in any political.
It's the way that I'm going back to this old school mentality back when the Senate was actually appointed by the House of Representatives, and
17th Amendment.
Yeah. And that they were, you guys, for the most part, are dealing with budgetary issues.
Right. Because all budgets start and end in the U.S. House. Yes.
Right. They start and end in the U.S. House. And some of the biggest decisions about that are by far domestic. They're absolutely domestic. And, and the Senate is supposed to be kind of cooperating in that process. But all those decisions, so there again, to clarify, are really there, like the focus of the directly elected members of the United States House is supposed to be, how am I best representing my constituents in my state with the policies that I support, and what's good for them versus what's good on a international scale. Do you see why I'm saying that? Yes, the U.S. senators are now directly elected as well, but they're a statewide race as opposed to you guys being in a district race, which is why I think the domestic focus is so much more fine-tuned or tightly tightened in on members of the House, because you're running to represent a particular district, not the entire state of Minnesota.
Right, and I agree with you, and I get that. But I guess I've probably taken a slightly different view on it than most members of Congress and most candidates for Congress over the years. At least I think I'm a little bit different, but I'm not being different for the sake of being different, TC.
I love being obstinate and different just for the. I know that shocks you.
Well, let me tell you what my perspective is. You know, it's been my view for a long, long time, 3 decades now, at least, of watching Congress, watching the sausage making, so to speak, that too many people in Washington, D.C., they're too focused on their district. What I mean by that is, hey, I'm all about bringing the bacon home, and who cares about the annual budget deficit? And so that then leads to what my top priority is. My top priority is to balance the U.S. budget. And I can explain why that's my top priority and why I want to do it and what I think that would do good for the American people. But is that very specific to the 7th Congressional District of Minnesota? I'm not sure it is. And, I tend to talk about some of these things, TC, that probably seem to some to be somewhat abstract, or that's just so big. And what does that have to do with agriculture in Western Minnesota? I think it does have something to do with it, but I admit it is a little abstract. So, in terms of getting money, twisting arms or using influence to get money home to the 7th for a particular highway project, for instance, or a particular bridge or whatever, I take a dim view of that, because I know that the U.S. Department of Transportation, for instance, it's my impression they use a fairly rigorous algorithm to determine where the priorities should be, based on the age of bridges and the age of roads and the conditions of those. And I know a number of legislators who tend to rely on those algorithms rather than trying to, beat their chests. Hey, I brought $6 million home to this, for this one bridge. My emphasis, if I am elected to Congress, DC, is not to bring bacon home, but to do what I think is best for the district in the context of what's best for the nation.
The new number 6, who is streaming this to their platform, the TMP platform for us, by the way. So you're getting all sorts of exposure. And in today's news, we're not talking about the same kind of exposure that the Epstein files have been showing. So we're not that kind of exposure. The Senate was originally intended to play a more prominent role in foreign affairs, while the House of Representatives was designed to focus more on domestic matters, particularly revenue bills. So that's what I was leaning on, and then also that tight focus in on your district. Now, I want you to understand that what I was saying about being focused on your district wasn't let's get as much pork as possible,
right.
But like, what is really actually, is this pork good for my district, and is taking that pork from other taxpayers, wage slave tax cattle across the U.S. Is that really going to be good for my district? And that's what I'm meaning, because I think a lot of times your perspective is great. That's actually that tight, narrow focus that I'm talking about. Is, wait a minute, just because somebody over here wants me to bring billions of dollars of revenue into the state of Minnesota doesn't mean it's necessarily good for Minnesota. And so I absolutely applaud your perspective on that. But, since I titled the stream, Minnesota's Massie. By the way, if nobody else is getting this, I'm a literary nerd. And so Minnesota Massie in a deep state court is actually supposed to be a play on a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. So if you don't get that, I can't help you. You need to read more. But that's really, because I've gotten to know a lot about your philosophy just in our conversations. That's been one of the things that has really kind of impressed me, is that you're not talking about let's bring as much pork into Minnesota as possible, especially to my district, which does put me in the mind of Thomas Massie, who has said over and over and over again, you look at all the attacks that he's gotten because he doesn't vote 100% with the GOP. And what's he say? I don't vote 100% with the GOP because what the GOP sometimes wants to do isn't good for my district. That's not what my constituents put me up here to do. They put me up here to do what's good for them. And that's what I'm hearing from you. And that's what I've heard in our conversations, be it on the phone or via text or messaging, however you want to say it, is that you want to do what's best for your constituents, even if it doesn't mean towing a line. And I think that's one of the things in my eyes that has set you apart from Michelle. And that's why
Well,
I asked. Go ahead.
no, I agree. I mean, for instance, I'm an admirer of Thomas Massie. I've been watching him for years. He has a number of acts and bills that he's been trying to get through. I think one of them
He's
is
my
the
bro
Prime
card.
Act. The Prime Act, which has to do with beef in particular, but livestock in general. And he's been pushing the Prime Act, which would be good for rural Kentucky, but it would also be good for rural Minnesota, and I think for most of rural America. So I've been a fan of the
Well,
Prime Act for a while. I don't.
Tell us about the Prime Act and why you would support that going in.
Well, I supported it all along, all the way up until my last congressional race in 2020. And so again, if it has been passed since then, I apologize to your viewers. I don't think it has passed. But basically, TC, it's my impression that at the time that he was pushing it back then, most beef, most animals for consumption, human consumption, the slaughter has to be inspected by USDA inspectors. And if you're a large operation, I believe you only have to have a sample or a few percent of the animals inspected during slaughter. It's harder on the small operators, which of course is ironic and bad in my opinion. I know some of the small operators. If you're small enough, then every single animal that you sell for slaughter has to be inspected, which is again hard on the small guy. And if you're a small government libertarian conservative like me, you want the small guys to have an opportunity to become big guys. So
Well,
if the
just think
rules
about the irony of that. Like you're showing up to the slaughter, yard, and
yeah,
you're showing up to the slaughter yard with 4 head of cattle,
right.
and they now want you to have every one of those inspected. But the guy that shows up with 500 head of cattle, nah, we'll just take one. What could possibly go wrong? Like if there's mad cow disease, it's in the morons that want to inspect the small guy more than the big guy. And
Right.
it says so much about the state of politics in our country.
Your audio is sounding pretty bad at this end, but anyway, so what the Prime Act does, TC, is it allows.
Oh, what happened? I don't know what's going on. I can barely hear you, and you disappeared from the screen.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to adjust my phone here. Maybe this will help. TC?
I can hear you fine now.
Okay. So what the Prime Act does is if state legislators want to do it, and if they have departments of agriculture at the state level that are, equipped to do it, then they can take on the task of inspecting those slaughters, however they want, whether it's, every single specimen or, a sample. And the gist of it is that it's going to make it easier for the small operators. That way you can sell more and prosper and so forth. And so that's just a very simple example, or it's an example of a simple concept there that Representative Massie has been pushing, that I have been saying for years and years and years that I would support. I've never heard that Representative Fishbach supports that, but I could be wrong about that.
Dave, if you could, we're getting great audio from you, but now all we're getting is a black hole, which makes me, feel like I'm talking to somebody that's already in DC. So I'm going to have you jump out of the stream and jump right back in, and I will play on hold music in the Muzak style way, and just sit here and go do 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 while you log not off your phone, but log out of StreamYard and back into StreamYard real quick and see if that refreshes your video.
Okay.
Because your audio is great, but people want to see you because they need something that's more pleasant to look at than me. Hey, folks, this is what happens when you work with technology and you're trying to um, do things live. It also, it it's not all my fault. I'm just lazy and I don't like to edit video any more than I have to. So there we go. Hey, welcome back. I did not
Hey.
ruin your career for you while you were gone. So
Sorry about that.
oh no, hey, life happens. So really very much appreciated. So yeah, so you have never seen that she has supported the Prime Act, which is really kind of ironic because it's not like you're in a heavily metropolitan area. You are rural. You guys are kind of known for farms and ranching and beef production and and pork production and other agricultural leanings in your area. It's not like you guys are a major tech industry sector.
Right. The 7th Congressional District consists of basically the whole western half of the state of Minnesota, from the Canadian border to a single ribbon of counties on the southern border with Iowa, and 39 counties. In Kimball, Minnesota, which is in the 7th, we have I believe, the largest beef cattle operation in the state of Minnesota. So lots of livestock, lots of pork, lots of turkeys. Minnesota is one of the largest turkey producers in the country, if not the largest turkey producer. So turkeys,
there's so many places to go with that comment about the production of turkeys in the state of Minnesota.
There you go.
Yeah. So somebody wants to know your name. His name's Dave Hughes. His links are in the chat below. And see, and that's what I appreciate is like you do. And I mean, obviously you're paying attention to things that a lot of people who even pay attention to politics don't hear about because it's not necessarily in their wheelhouse. My focus when it comes to politics, obviously, is not the nitty gritty of what every little policy is. It's like, are we putting people in the House or the Senate at any level or any political position? Are we putting people in those positions that we can trust? And, we'd started this portion of the conversation by me talking about the never ending pursuit of war, which of course is very much right in the wheelhouse of the House in the sense of budgetary matters. And even, the House and the Senate having to agree as Congress to declare war. Do you know where your opponent stands on that? And, what's your perspective on reigning in the never-ending war state?
Well, I know that Representative Fishbach voted for at least one of the very large Ukrainian the funds that we sent to Ukraine. I believe she voted for the first one that they authorized, and then maybe she voted against the second one when she heard how unpopular it was among her constituents in western Minnesota. And then from there, TC, I didn't pay a ton of attention. I don't know how many total appropriations there were. I've been against all of them all along. My perspective is that we should be a non-interventionist country, not an isolationist, not a Pollyannish country who ignores the world and just goes about whistling past the graveyard or whatever other phrase you want to use. We have to be aware. We have to have really good intelligence. We have to have good, State Department activities. But unless it's a vital national interest, I don't want to be involved. I mean, for instance, I was in the short air war in 1999, TC, when the U.S. went to war under Bill Clinton with Serbia. We bombed Slobodan Milosevic for 90 days, supposedly because he was a really bad guy who was brutally slaughtering Kosovar Albanians who are of the Muslim religion. The problem is that Madeleine Halfbright, that's what I call her, Madeleine Albright, she
love it.
She was lying about the numbers. She said that Milosevic had slaughtered this many thousands and that many thousands, and it was later verified that she was just completely lying to make the case.
Can you believe that? Secretary of State lying about?
Yeah, so we went to war. It was a brief war. It was 90 days, but we blew up lots of 1,000-year-old bridges in Serbia and bombed all sorts of things and killed people and
Chinese energy.
Right. And I was in that war. And so, and I can tell you that a number of times I almost lost my life, not because Milosevic had any opportunity to shoot us, but because it was such a congested airspace that a couple of American fighters almost ran into me. I was, a tanker pilot at the time. They'd come up and get their fuel. And then when the AWACS, gave direction, hey, go bomb, gave them coordinates to go bomb this thing or go do that, boom, their fangs come out and they're ready to go. But, it's for a second or two, they're not paying attention to where they are and they almost ran into us. So, the old proverbial from the movie Top Gun, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we're sorry to inform you that your son is dead because he was stupid. But in this case, it would have been because, my fellow Air Force airmen ran into me.
I'm just trying to. I've seen folks. For those of you that don't know, I am an Army veteran. 82nd Airborne was my last assignment. And if you ever have the opportunity to look up the Green Ramp disaster, please do, because the Green Ramp disaster is exactly what happens when, even in training, you don't pay attention. An F-16 collided with the back of a C-130 at Pope Air Force Base right over 82nd Airborne staging area at Pope, called Green Ramp, which it's called Green Ramp because once you're on Green Ramp, you're a go. And 27 U.S. paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne were killed that day because the F-16 hit the C-130. So what he's saying is not untenable, and it's very easy in the fog of war, so to speak, to have something like that happen. So, and it is a massive fireball waiting to happen. So,
So TC, one other little morsel is that I'm still working to verify the dates. On this date this happened, but I've heard it from enough people, and it's been the same story every single time, which is that on one of those Ukrainian funding bills in committee, I don't know what committee it would have been. Maybe it was House Ways and Means, because Michelle is on, I think, 4 committees. Rules, ethics, Ways and Means, and I'm forgetting at the moment what the other one is, but rules and ethics don't have a whole lot to do with Ukrainian funding bills. So I'm thinking it was Ways and Means. But anyway,
maybe it should.
The story is that in committee, she knew that the Democrats would have enough votes with certain Republicans to pass the bill. So in committee, she made sure that enough.
We lost him again.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I can hear you. But now you're cut out again. Try jumping out and jumping back in.
Okay.
Technology, folks. Trust me, we were trying this through his computer, which is why we started about 22 minutes behind. But, tech is a wonderful thing until it's not. But yeah, if you guys ever get a chance to check out the Green Ramp disaster, please do, because it's a story that a lot of people aren't aware of. And I was supposed to be there that day, and I got called away. I got called away from from my what I was supposed to do that day to go do some emergency tracking on some high-tech security communications equipment that day. And because I missed it, I got called away from that practice jump. I missed the Green Ramp disaster. It likely saved my life, or saved me from severe injury. And every year when the anniversary of Green Ramp comes around, it's humbling for me that I survived. I think you look good. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say that. But you're here and you appear to be doing well on camera. How's your sound?
Pretty good. You're a little scratchy. I hope that it's not bad at your end.
Yeah, it's much less scratchy. I do. You must be holding your phone now.
I'm holding my phone.
Yeah. What we need to do is we need to get you a tripod, and you could just do like I do when I have to use my phone for something. I just make it look like I've got a really steady hand, but I'm perfectly fine. So you were saying that she said something about the funding, or she had made a comment and we didn't catch what that was.
Well, the story I've been told enough by enough people, but I want to confirm this because I always, I don't want to traffic too much in rumors and innuendo. But the story is that she was in committee and fought to make sure that there was plenty of funding for Ukraine, voted for the bill in committee, but then when it got to the House, she voted against it and then went back to her district and, pounded her chest, so to speak, to say, I voted against this wasteful spending. Well, yeah, sure, Michelle, but you made sure in committee that you got every nickel in there you wanted. So that's the kind of deceptive nonsense that I would pledge to everyone that if I'm elected to Congress, I won't engage in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think that's, we talk about this all the time. Congress controls the purse strings, and I really wonder anymore if Congress really does control the purse strings. I know that we technically we're supposed to see them control the purse strings, but what we end up seeing most of the time is that they just take the purse, they rip it wide open for certain segments of the federal government. One of them being the Social Security Administration, which you and I have recently talked a little bit about. And everybody who's got their eyes wide open, I'm not talking, red pilled, blue pilled, black pilled, white pilled, whatever. Anybody who's got their eyes wide open knows that Social Security is gonna end. It's on its way out. We've been paying into it for years. A lot of people have this false idea that money that you pay into Social Security is being held in an account with your name on it, and all that you've been paying in and that your employer's been matching funds with, that's all going to come back to you when you finally reach the magical retirement age, which, whatever they're going to, by the time, I'm 55, by the time I reach magical retirement age, it's probably going to be 75, and they'll up it again, is what they're, and Ben Shapiro would like for no one to retire. We should all work for the rest of our lives, which, by the way, I'm not a big fan of retirement, but not in the same way that Ben Shapiro is. But you have some concerns about Social Security, and you have, you're kicking around, how do we address this issue? And what's your biggest concern with Social Security right now? And what do you think we pie in the sky, best case scenario, how do we address it? I mean, you're a small government, like ultimately very limited government guy. What's the answer to that? Is there a way to change Social Security and do it from a limited government perspective, or are we just screwed paying for this for the rest of our lives?
Well, TC, I see three possible avenues. I'm acquainted with a gentleman who's the regional director in this area for AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. They label themselves and market themselves as the conservative alternative to AARP. And this regional director gave me a briefing. I guess it's the latest and greatest briefing from their national level expert and point man on Social Security. And I read it just a couple of days ago. I might have even chatted with you briefly about it, but it was a really good briefing. It was only 17 slides, so it's not like it was death by PowerPoint. It didn't have 100 slides. And it presented a pretty good picture. It had some details that I was unaware of. For instance, it mentioned, I thought that the payroll tax was the exclusive 100% avenue for funding Social Security. But according to this briefing, there's a part of personal income tax at the higher end. I think it's for upper brackets. Some little part of that goes into Social Security, and I didn't know that. But to answer your question, in my mind, there's three possible avenues. One, there's the quote, air quote, saving Social Security. And what that entails is doing one or more of five things. The fifth item, I'm not sure would do anything. And so I would want to talk to some policy experts as to, if you did this, would it actually do any good? First of all, you could increase the payroll taxes, which I'm very much against, because to me, Social Security is already a horrible value proposition. Right now, your FICA tax takes 6.2% of your income right off the top to go into Social Security, and then your employer has to kick in another 6.2. So I do the math and I say it's 12.4, because if we didn't have Social Security, if it didn't exist right now, TC, if you didn't have the payroll tax, theoretically your employer could pay you that 6.2. So I'll just go ahead and, for the interest of my direction here, I'll say 12.4% of your income is going to a single program called Social Security. To quote, save Social Security, you could increase that amount. I think that's bad, but that's one of the things you could do. The other is you could increase the eligibility age, because part of this briefing I read the other day verified what I've heard in multiple locations for years and years and years, which is when Social Security was first implemented 90 years ago, you were expected to be dead before you were even eligible for it. The male life expectancy back then was 62, and eligibility, was at that time was, I guess, not until 75. So you could increase the eligibility age. The third thing is you could just reduce the benefit. The fourth thing that AMAC talked about was just do nothing. And they say that's not an option, and I agree that's not an option. And then the fifth part, TC, is you could increase the number of immigrants that we allow into the U.S. every year, under the guise that, one of the things analysts have been talking about for decades is that when Social Security was first implemented, you had 7 workers contributing to the program for every recipient. So my thinking is, if you allowed more immigrants in, then supposedly you'd have more workers and more people contributing to the program. But there's probably all sorts of negatives and unintended consequences to that.
Gee, what could possibly go wrong? But I mean,
that would make
with the win-win. I think the last time I looked, I think we're up to like 11 people working full-time, 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 11 people working 40 hours a week to support one person on Social Security. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's probably an estimate, but it's up.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than 6. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So those are the 4 or 5 things you could do to quote fix Social Security. The other end of it, which is the one that I tend to favor at the moment, and I can't. It would take a lot to move me off this, TC.
We're gonna ruffle feathers.
Well, the avenue I want to go is to privatize the program and phase it out. Now, I know that's super scary, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but what I've always said on the campaign trail, everywhere I've been, whether it's in private or in a group or on the radio or otherwise, is if I was in Congress and they put me in charge of reforming Social Security, the way I would go about it is to phase the program out. And the first thing I always say on that one, TC, is that you would not affect current recipients. So if you're currently a recipient of Social Security, your monthly stipend and the COLA might be subject to some reform, but you would not see a reduction in cash benefit or any other benefit because you're already on it. It's what you're depending on, and it wouldn't be fair.
I've never done this in one of my streams before, but I have to do this right now.
What's that?
As you're talking about phasing it out, this is what's happening to me.
What's that?
Heartbeat. I just hit a soundboard heartbeat. But I will also now, after my heartbeat sped up, I also now have to give you one of these.
I can't hear the sound effect you're doing.
That's fun because my audience can. So I did applause. So
you and I are about the same age, TC. I'm a little older than you, but I didn't come up.
You look a lot older than.
Well, so people at the Manhattan Institute, people at the Cato Institute, and others have said, look, we could phase this out. We wouldn't affect current recipients. You'd have kind of a middle ground there, maybe age 50 to 62, where you would get some sort of hybrid benefit. You wouldn't get as much as maybe what you were currently expecting to get eventually. And then people under the age of 50, and I'm just throwing these numbers out, but people under the age of 50 would get no benefit from the current program, but they would either be encouraged to, save on their own, heaven forbid, or maybe there would be a requirement under federal law to contribute a certain amount into a 401k kind of program. And then there's a middle ground.
I appreciate what you're saying with that requirement aspect, but I'm like, no, like just don't require anything. That's what,
Right.
like, other than
No, I
the
agree with.
end of socialism, which is what Social Security is. It's not Marxism. It's not communism. It's socialism.
Right.
It's what just if you go back to before Social Security existed, people took care of one another.
Right.
Churches used to take care of the people who were struggling, and they don't anymore. Like,
Right.
not because, well, there is some degree. Most people know how I feel about the modern Western Christian culture in the United States, as an very strong Calvinistic, Reformed, Baptistic type of Christian. I have lots of complaints about even other Reformed churches in this country today, but for the most part, we've absolutely destroyed the ability of churches to help because people can't hardly give to their churches anymore. They talk about give till it hurts. I do every time I get a paycheck. I have given until it hurts. So get done with it. But I'm sorry, that was my aside. I know that
Well,
you're thinking about people panicking, like, what am I going to do if I don't have Social Security?
so TC, I was offering the required retirement thing, not because that's my preference, but because that's just one of the possibilities. But I agree with you. If they put me in charge and I would not require the federal, I would not require the citizens of America under some federal guise or federal program to save in their own accounts. But that's one of the possibilities. The third possibility is the middle ground that nobody's talking about, and it doesn't seem like a better option to me, but it is an option, and that is. And this briefing I mentioned to you, the 17-slide briefing, editorialized and made the comment, which is a correct comment, which is that Social Security was never intended to be a, quote, retirement program. It was supposed to be insurance for the very, very, very poorest in America, widows and orphans and that sort of thing. In which case I came up with recently, just in the last few days, TC, because believe it or not, I do think about this topic all the time, especially as I'm ramping up here to run for Congress. But the middle ground is that you could dramatically reduce the scale of the program. That is, it would only be for widows and orphans and those in the most dire situation. And that still wouldn't be good from the perspective you expressed earlier about, hey, let's get rid of socialism, let's get rid of these federal mandates. But at the same time, if you scaled it way back, then at least your contribution could be a lot smaller. Like if I was contributing 0.5% of my income, I would care a whole lot less how efficient the program is and the fraud that's going on compared to the 12.4% that I told you about earlier.
Yeah.
It's such a dang expensive program, and it's being poorly run, and there's lots of fraud, and the return on investment is absolutely horrible.
So wait a minute. What you're telling me is that a federal program that's been going on now for
almost 100 years,
has now managed to manage itself and run itself into the ground.
Well, you were talking.
I don't like this. No, the federal government is perfect, and everything it touches is ironically, the number 6 brought up the gold standard. Everything the federal government does is gold. Everything it touches is gold. It has to be, because we don't know where the gold at Fort Knox is anymore. So they must just be touching things and turning them to gold all over the place. A federal program went bad. What?
Well, it's such a messed up program. I only learned recently, TC, that you've heard of the solvency or insolvency date. There's a board of trustees for both Social Security and Medicare, and then they publish an annual report. And in that annual report, they update their projected insolvency date, and the date changes, a year or two here and there, and but the current date is either 2033 or 2034, which isn't that far away. But also, it gives some people a sense of, okay, we've got a few years to figure this out. And I'm sounding the alarm now, TC, that we don't have a few years to figure it out. We've got to do it now, and here's why. And I only learned this recently because these think tank analysts and people on the news don't ever talk about this, but here it is. Your listeners can go Google it right now. They can go to AI, they can go to Cato and Manhattan Institute and others. But Social Security right now is running an annual cash flow deficit, and has been every single year since 2010. So for the last 15 years, it's been taking in less money in the form of a payroll tax than it does going out to recipients. And just last year, TC, in 2025, it was $250 billion. And the reason why that number is important is that one of the other things, and maybe we can get to this later, is when I talk about right sizing the government, if you could balance the government, balance the budget, that's one thing. But now then you take a breath and go, okay, now we're balanced, but how big should the government be regardless of balance? And that's the next step, which is to right size it, which, you can imagine what I mean by that is to make it smaller. But part of that TC is I want to get rid of at least 4 of the 15 US departments. I'll rattle them off super quick. US Department of Education, Energy, Labor, and Housing and Urban Development. And if you were to abolish all those, and if all that funding went away that runs those 4 US departments every year, just those 4 departments would pay for that $250 billion annual deficit that I mentioned a minute ago with Social Security.
Yeah, I would definitely do away with the Federal Department of Education, like gone, bingo. You say these, and I do not mean this, and you say these things, and these are the right things to be saying, but these are the things that your Republican opponent's going to beat you up with.
Sure.
She's going to beat you up with these things. Not that Michelle Fishbach's gonna. I will probably reach out to her campaign to be fair, and that's how I am. That I don't. I've had Royce White on after months and months and months of going back and forth with him on social media. I finally got him to show up audio wise, and we had an interesting conversation. So I do try to reach out to everybody and have conversations with everybody that's trying to run for office, especially in the state of Minnesota, at the running for Congress, running for Senate, or other statewide offices, things like that. But she's never going to watch this, and the chances of her being able to clip anything that you're saying and trying to take it out of context is just going to be virtually impossible because of how detailed your positions are. But it won't matter. She's going to, hey, look, this is what he wants to do. He wants to take this program out. He wants to end this department. And don't you know what that's going to do to you? I'm a Republican who believes in small government, but I'm the reasonable one. And when you talk about how much Social Security is in the hole, what did you say this last year? It was how much?
$250 billion in just 1 year.
250 billion. How many billions did we give to Ukraine?
About that amount, maybe a little more.
Did you know this, Dave? And I think this is something I'm sure if you don't know, you will check me on it. You know that we are paying the salaries and the retirement of Ukrainian government officials.
Oh yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so opposed to it. I mean, it's not like I would have felt better, TC, if it was just going to Raytheon in the form of missiles or something else. But, how on earth is it a vital strategic national interest of the United States to pay for the bureaucracy of Ukraine? Give me a break.
But we're spreading democracy.
Ukraine is like the second worst country on the planet. They're not democratic at all.
No, Dave, we're spreading democracy. Don't you? That's what we're spreading democracy, Dave. Come on, you got. I'm afraid to ask you who the first worst is, but I have my opinions, but I won't.
Well, either Haiti or North Korea.
Are they? Don't get me wrong.
All right. Well, I know what you're about to say.
No. Well, I'm not going to say it for you. I will share that for some time when I'm doing a Libertarian lowdown by myself, or spread the new number 6 has spread the Slava, right? Yeah. I'm gonna touch on something because I don't get people running for federal office on as much as I would like. I think I would much more love to have people running for federal office on, but they tend to want to stay away from smaller independents like me, which is to their detriment, honestly. Um, I will ask things that a lot, well, which is probably why they won't come on. So, props to you for being brave enough to do this, or maybe you had a couple too many this morning. In agreement.
TC, I don't mean this to sound self-aggrandizing, but this is easy. This is what I like. The harder the question you want to ask me, the more I'm going to enjoy it. And and it goes with my whole philosophy that, I've seen politicians at the state level, local level, and federal level just desperately grasping for power and doing things that are corrupt because they want to stay in office. And here's what I want everyone in the world I want everybody in the world to think the way I do on this one thing, and that's this. And that is, even if you love your elected official, whether that's a US rep or a senator or governor or whatever, you should always be scanning the horizon, looking for somebody better and smarter to come along to replace that person. And I have that attitude. I've adopted that attitude for a long time, TC. Even with regard to my own pursuit of and my own call, I have a deep sense of calling to this. But if I'm elected to the U.S. House and somebody comes along in 27 or 28 to challenge me for my first re-election campaign, and he's just head and shoulders smarter and better, obviously I'll fight to win. But if I'm relieved of this position, that's totally fine. And that's why I don't mind tough questions, and that's why I'm not afraid to be on your show.
Well, I'm going to throw some things at you here, and your opponent, you're this Republican opponent as of right now, because you're going to be running for the endorsement and the nomination,
right,
from District 7. If you can get that, you're going to be faced with some things that everybody who runs for Congress at the federal level is faced with. According to everything I've been able to find about your opponent for the Republican endorsement and nomination for 7th District, Michelle Fishbach has taken thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from AIPAC and AIPAC-affiliated organizations. At minimum of 50,000 plus. A minimum of 50,000 plus. For her campaign. Will you today say, I will not take money from AIPAC?
Yes, absolutely.
Any of their affiliates.
Absolutely. I have in my previous attempts, TC, taken money from PACs such as the American Builders Association and other things like that. These are American PACs that are about their industry. We would like better, fewer regulations when it comes to construction, things like that. So I've taken PAC money in the past, but the good news is nobody ever asked me to do anything. They're just like, hey, we hope you'll do great things in DC. Here's some money. So I've taken PAC money in the past, but AIPAC and others like that have to do with countries and interests outside of the U.S., I will not take funds from those.
Folks, you heard him say it. He will not. And Dave knows me well enough to know that I will follow up on that. If he gets the nomination, I will follow up on that, and I will watch. Not to be an ass, but because this is, to me as a Minnesotan, I don't want anybody in the state of Minnesota who's in Congress or the Senate or any other position taking money from any foreign lobbying interest at all. None, because they shouldn't be allowed to. One, I don't think any foreign government, any foreign entity should be able to give money to a politician to curry favor. Will you reject an AIPAC handler?
Yes. And I've never encountered one. Don't know what that looks like, but I've heard about it. And I'll just smile at the guy and say, please go away.
I like how you're the guy, you're not falling for the honeypot, right?
No. Years ago, I was asked about that, and I said, I'm going to adopt the Billy Graham model. When he was out doing his crusades, he would always have a male staffer with him wherever he was, in an elevator or in a hallway or wherever, because he didn't want to even be in an elevator by himself with a woman, to protect his reputation.
You know, just because we're friends, I feel like I can make a joke and say, "Trust me, no one's coming for you, Dave." Your other half is going to smack me for that one. She's like, wait, what's he saying? Oh, so I believe that's probably at the core. It's probably one of the most important foundational questions that we really should be asking anybody that is running for federal office. And the truth of it is that AIPAC and others like them have started to weasel their way into state level politics as well. And we see that play out with, you know, legislation. Minnesota has legislation on the books now that if you are a business trying to contract with the state of Minnesota, if you have vowed to boycott Israel, geopolitical Zionist Israel, you can't get a contract with the government of Minnesota. We saw Florida do the same thing, and their governor went to Jerusalem to sign the legislation into law. So the state level stuff is like you would think would be unheard of, and if it's coming into the state at the state level, you know the pressure is going to be very high on someone like you who has said, no, I'm not taking AIPAC money. I'm not going to take an AIPAC handler. I'm not going to be here to represent AIPAC, i.e. Zionist Israel. Would you, when it comes to the purse strings, will you strongly consider teaming up with people regardless of their political, whatever side of the political aisle they're on? Would you strongly consider pushing to begin to sever our financial ties and even this apparent geopolitical strategy that the U.S. has had since really 1948, but it's really gotten bad since the early, late 50s, early 60s. Would you begin to sever the purse strings or the apron strings between us and the government of Israel and funding, military operations for them and supplying military materials for them? Is that something you are willing to consider, or?
Yes, and not because I'm anti-Israel or that I don't like Jewish folks or anything like that. My perspective on it is this, TC. The Camp David Accords, I don't know all the different things either before the Camp David Accords or since then, but it's my impression that Jimmy Carter, gave us the Camp David Accords, and since then we've been giving $1 billion+ every single year to the country of Egypt, and $2+ billion per year every single year to the nation of Israel, so that they won't make war with each other. Now, obviously, in recent years, we've been giving a whole lot more money than that to Israel. But I have kind of two thoughts about that. One, A, we should have never done that in the first place. But B, or two, now that we've been doing it for 50 years, maybe we should reassess the situation. And if it was ever justified, is it still justified 50 years later? Maybe not. And I, so I would work with like-minded folks to end that program. Third of all, I'm just, one of the things, TC, is when you assess politicians and candidates, they all sort of say they're for the same things, right? So me and Michelle both say we're pro-life. Me and Michelle both say we're pro-Second Amendment. In 2020, when she first ran, she espoused certain things, but the other four candidates, me and the other three guys, we were all for the same things anyway. So how do you determine which one you want to support, which one you want to vote for? I think you have to do the hard work of determining, A, if they're telling the truth, but B, what are their priorities? Yeah. And my priority, again, remains the fiscal health of the nation. And, some people will poo-poo it and say, well, $3 billion is just a drop in the bucket. And they're right, but it's $3 billion that we ought not to be giving away in the Camp David Accord money that we could apply towards balancing the budget and making things better at home. And that's ultimately America first and MAGA, in my point of view. So a long way to say, TC, that yes, I would work to end those funding streams. But here's the other thing, is that the money we've been giving to Israel for the last 50 or 60 years always comes with strings, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. And whether it's an American president, whether it's a Republican president or a Democratic president, it always comes with strings. And I want the people of Israel to flourish. I want the citizens of Israel to do well. So to me, the best way to do that would be to cut them loose. And instead of having them sit at the kiddie table, have them sit at the adult table. I mean, we don't give $5 billion a year to Holland or Sweden or Norway.
Well, I
They're all,
guarantee you somewhere we do.
yeah, but
I guarantee freaking you somewhere
well,
we do.
but for the sake of my argument, let's say we're not, right? And so they're all at the big boy table. Meanwhile, tiny little Israel's sitting over there at the kiddie table, and we're giving them cash every year. Why not? Why not end that and say, look, you are a strong, advanced civilization. You have a strong, varied economy. With medical stuff and
you can hit it on the head.
Well, they produce all sorts of things, and they can
economy. Absolutely, their GDP is bigger than ours percentage wise, and their
per capita,
and their per capita income is higher. They do not have our population, obviously, our per capita poverty level is massively bigger than theirs, and yet we still continue to send them money.
Well, and after the attack a couple of years ago, and people were like, "We need to send them aid. We need to send them weapons." I'm like, we already have been sending them $2 billion a year for 50 years. So why do we suddenly need to send them a whole lot more? I didn't ever understand that.
Well, this is and the reason I'm hitting this is because you had said something earlier when you brought up Ukraine and how your constituents are not for the U.S. getting, sending even more money to Ukraine, but let alone being involved in that conflict.
Right.
And a lot of people, your constituents, knowing that rocks and cows type, they voted partially because we were given a promise by Trump that he was going to end that war on day one. And here we sit over a year away from the promise of day one. And now we're giving even more to Ukraine. And I also know rocks and cows well enough to know that there is a segment that are very much, they believe that it's healthy and right and proper, that they have some spiritual reasons why they think we're supposed to support Israel. I'm not going to try and break all of that down. That's not this stream, but my audience and the people in the state who do watch me and around the country who watch me are like, no, we're done. We're done. We're not supporting any politicians anymore who are pro-Israel. And what I'm hearing you say is not that you're not anti, and I'm glad that you clarified that you don't have an issue with the Jewish people, because I think a lot of people who are now have become anti-Zionism and anti-Zionist influence in the U.S. are labeled as being anti-Semites.
Right.
And they're not the same thing at all. It is, to be anti-Zionism is not to be an anti-Semite. And there are millions of Christians in this country and non-Christians in this country. And there are millions of Jews in this country who are anti-Zionism. And I think the holdup in a state like Minnesota is getting people to understand it's okay to oppose sending billions of dollars to a country like Israel and saying we're severing the purse strings, we're severing the apron strings. Like you said, time to grow up, sit at the big boy table, do this on your own. People are terrified of being told, "Oh, that's being anti-Semitic." And I think it takes someone with your cojones, there, I said it in a nice way. It takes someone with your intestinal fortitude, your cojones, to be able to stand up and say, we really need to rethink this. And as you said much earlier, is this good? Is this a good fiscal decision for my district? Is this a good fiscal decision for my people in my state of Minnesota? And the only answer to that is cut off the funding to all these foreign countries. And you really hit home on that when you were describing the difference between being anti-interventionist and an isolationist, because a lot of people confuse those two. If you say that you don't want to intervene in other countries' political affairs anymore, oh, you're an isolationist. No, I'm not. I'm just tired of intervening.
Well, TC, I don't know if there's a strict definition of isolationist, but if the U.S. State Department has ambassadors in every country on the planet, other than North Korea and maybe one or two others, then by definition we're not isolationist. We're there, we're aware, we have domestic or diplomatic relations. Obviously, we have non-official cover in most of those countries. Because we need to know what's going on and have our intelligence streams. But that doesn't mean we need to get involved in everything that's going on in all these countries. The old phrase "banana republic" comes from I believe, I don't know the story super well, but the CIA and others getting involved in a particular Central or South American country back right after World War II to affect their presidential election, and we shouldn't be doing those things, and we can't afford to do those things, and I think if we were doing less of those things, then it would be better for America.
Well, and I think that's something a lot of people struggle with is the fear of being accused of whatever, anti whatever, or being selfish. And as I look around, everybody keeps talking about the economy is, oh, it's so much stronger than it was, last year at this time, or 2 years ago at this time. And they, do things like, I bought a dozen eggs at Aldi today and no, I'm not, Aldi is not sponsoring my show, but if there's any representatives from Aldi that would like to sponsor a Libertarian show, that, reach out to me. But I think we had to buy eggs. My chickens do not like laying eggs in the winter when it's been as cold as it has been for the last couple of weeks. But so we had to buy a dozen eggs for a baking project my wife took on, and it was $1.96. They haven't been that low for a while.
I buy them from the Amish up the street.
Well, fair.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to pay more for eggs, depending on, what we're doing. And hello to everybody who's in the chat. I see you, Buster. Rick from Oregon, thanks for being here. Jugs, one of my channel mods, is here. Thanks for being here, guys. Hit that like on your way in and share. But when I look at the state of the economy, fuel prices are down, but the prices of other things are going up. Vehicles are more expensive. But our president said that he wants to drive up housing prices to protect current homeowners from having to sell their houses at a reduced rate to someone who isn't working hard for it.
I haven't heard a whole lot of that, and I certainly don't follow that logic. But yeah,
well,
I'd have
I don't know that you could. I think it's way more than fair to call that logic, sir. But Rick, we've discussed sending money to Ukraine. We're not for sending money to Ukraine either. So,
TC, I wanted to go back to something real quick. You and I haven't talked a whole lot in private about Zionism per se. I think we've touched on it. We've talked about it a little bit.
Well, you know me. I'm a loudmouth. You've heard me say so.
Well, I want you to be clear, and I want your viewers to be clear. I'm not at the moment. I'm not anti-Zionist. I have studied the material, or I've studied the movement going back to the late 1800s and how it kicked off. Now, admittedly, it was in a master's class, and it was school. It's quick and it's not necessarily in depth.
I like that you said in a master's class, but it was quick and not in depth. I'm like that, folks. That's why I don't care about college education anymore.
Well,
they just destroyed the entire.
Well, so I have an undergrad in aerospace engineering, and I did all of my masters for in aerospace, but I didn't get the thesis done, so I didn't get the degree. And then I thought, well, okay, let me go do a master's in national security studies with an emphasis in Middle East studies, and did that for a little while. But what was I going to say? Yeah,
You're not
and
anti-Zionist. Oh no, yeah, I want everybody to
well,
understand. Dave,
yeah,
my
well,
views do not represent Dave's.
right. So my impression of Zionism as how it started and how it promulgated, I'm not presently against it. Certainly not looking back, but certainly not now. But what I want to tell you is I'm open to talking to you offline because I'm not fully apprised at all, TC, of what your perspective is and why you're against it. I just don't know about it. So
Oh,
because I don't know, I can't oppose your view because I don't know your view on it.
no, if you try to oppose my view, I'll mute your mic. That's what I.
but
I'm
that said,
serious. Censorship. I cut them down. No.
that said, I want to make it clear that I'm not anti-Jewish people. I'm not
No,
against the
neither
nation
am
of
I.
Israel. But I also want to share with you one little thing. You might find this interesting. I went to the 2024 MNGOP convention where you mentioned the name Royce White, where he was overwhelmingly endorsed. I think he got 65% of the vote on the first ballot against his opponent, his Republican opponent, for the endorsement. But while we were there was an older gentleman. I've seen him before. I don't know his name. He was walking around. I think he's part of the Republican Jewish Coalition. I think that's what they call themselves in Minnesota. And he was walking around the convention and he had a sign up, and I don't remember what the sign said, but I came up to him and I quietly asked, I said, "Can I be pro-Israel and not want to give more money?" And he just shook his head. And so I disagree with that gentleman, and I disagree with that perspective. And you addressed it already a couple minutes ago, but I just want to say that I don't want to give any more money to foreign nations, but that doesn't mean I'm against them.
Oh no, yeah, yeah. Look, Israel has a right to exist. Geopolitical Israel has a right to exist.
100%.
Not my duty to ensure their existence. Period. Not my duty. It's their duty. No, see, this is the thing. So this is a great time to bring this up. So we've got Rick in chat saying things like, "Well, what about the history? The Jews are the indigenous. I guess we shouldn't send money to Guatemala for transgender." Right. We shouldn't send money to Guatemala for transgender studies. We shouldn't send money to any country for any reason. We shouldn't send military arms to any country for any purpose at all. Keep the money home in our country. We're not a nation. In our country, in our republic. Keep the money where it belongs. Stop sending our money. Stop sending the wage slave tax cattle dollars all over the freaking world to fund whatever. I don't care what we're funding. And if a country cannot survive without US dollars or US support, then that country doesn't deserve to survive. Period. If you can't take care of yourself, it's not our job to take care of you. We've got veterans in this country right now who are sleeping in sub-zero weather because their country abandoned them after they spent 20 plus years fighting against the global war on terror, which we got lied into. The VA is failing veterans. We've got thousands of stories of how the VA is failing American veterans. But by God, we can send money to Ukraine and Guatemala and Israel and South Korea and every single Arab freaking country to stay at peace. We're gonna pay your bribe. We're gonna pay you a bribe to stay at peace. We can do a 6-hour invasion of Venezuela and remove their president and call it a law enforcement action. And that's okay with so many people. Why? I don't give a darn about Dave's got me behaving myself with my language. I don't give a darn about any of that. And that's what I like about what Dave is saying is like, I don't have a problem with Israel. I don't have a problem with, once again, people in any country. I'm just tired of being at war with everybody. I'm tired at sending money everywhere. And Dave's over here going, let's take care of the American people. Can we just take care of the American people? Which is why I know Dave is a fan of closed borders, correct?
Absolutely. And that's one thing I think President Trump has done super well on. All indications are, it was marvelous how all those years Biden was saying we need new legislation in order for me to close down the border, and Trump said no, we don't. And then in 30 days he shuts it all down, and zero crossings and zero apprehensions. It's fantastic.
Oh, you got somebody from your potential district in here, Chad Cater. Good to see Chad.
I know Chad.
Haven't seen Chad in chat for a while. It's good to have him here. As far as maybe sometime off, I'll explain to you my opposition to Zionism as a philosophy. It is not a religious philosophy. It literally has its roots in the Bolshevik movement. The people who launched Zionism were gunning like literally for a communist country. That's what they wanted. That's how Zionism started. But
that element of it, of course, wasn't in my master's class.
No, yeah.
What they talked about was this movement in Britain and the U.S. of Christians who wanted the Jewish people to have their homeland back.
Yeah,
and that was it. That was all that was covered.
Yeah, that dispensationalism is not. I mean, it is Zionist, but it's not where Zionism came from. So, Zionist. They just linked up together. And for anybody who hasn't, if you really want a really good history on modern Israel, no, Zionism is not the ingathering of the exiles. Rick from Oregon, you don't know your history. If you want a really good history on the modern state of geopolitical Zionist Israel, the best place to do it is the Martyr Made podcast, where he did almost 27 hours of a series called Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem. And that's for you, Dave. That's for everybody. Daryl Cooper from Martyr Made does the best breakdown of the history of Israel as it is today, not the real Israel of ancient Israel, but the geopolitical Zionist nation, nationalism. He has done a great job of breaking that history down, and I would point everybody to that podcast. Once you listen to it, you will never have the same view on world history again, because everything he says, he backs up with facts. But anyway, when you look at, and we've been at this now for almost an hour and a half, even with our delay, when you look at the history of politics in the state of Minnesota, and the history of your opponent, Michelle Fishbach, and I mean, she's at 30 plus years now, I think we said
32.
You're dealing with an entrenchment, to use military language. You're dealing with an entrenchment that's going to be really tough to overcome, because a lot of people are just, whether they even like her, they're just going to vote for a name they know, even in an endorsement convention. How are you going to approach that endorsement process and be honest to who you are, true to yourself, not make promises that you don't want to make because it doesn't represent you, and defeat her? Because I think you're going to be much better for 7th Congressional District than Michelle has been. I don't think she's produced anything of value for the 7th Congressional District. I've talked to people constantly from there going, what has she done for us? And these aren't people looking for a handout. These are people going, who does she represent? And like I said, she's taken well more than $50,000 just from AIPAC and AIPAC affiliated sources. That tells me she's not representing the people of Minnesota. And, and you said you won't take that money. Are you going to lead with that? Are you going to, what are you going to do how do you lead into an endorsement campaign to set yourself apart from her, besides saying, I, Dave Hughes, am not a lifetime politician. I've not served in office for 30 plus years. Because then people go, well, yeah, you don't have any experience. How should we trust you? It's like trying to get credit when you don't have credit.
Well, in the 7th Congressional District, TC, that's a great way to start. I am not a career politician. Boom, you've got 30% of the delegates right there. Less than 2 years ago, in April or May of 2024, Michelle Fishbach was running for her second reelection, and she faced 2 Republican opponents in the endorsing convention, both friends of mine, Annette Watson and Steve Boyd. Annette and her husband Christopher, good friends, very smart, very dedicated Republicans, conservatives. Unfortunately for Annette, she dropped off after the first ballot. Then it was on to Michelle Fishbach versus Steve Boyd. That then became the main contest. At the end of the day, TC, after 4 or 5 rounds of ballots, it deadlocked at 55-45. So the good news is Michelle is already unpopular with the delegates. You asked about the endorsement. The endorsement is a very small battle in terms of the numbers. It's about getting 60% of fewer than 300 delegates. And if 45% of them couldn't stand Michelle Fishbach 2 years ago, I guarantee you that 45% to 50% to 55 to 60% of them this year are not going to want her. And at the moment, I'm the only one challenging Michelle Fishbach. I tried really hard last year, and I know others tried to get Steve Boyd to run again. And for reasons I don't want to discuss here, he didn't want to run again, and he's not running again. So because of that, I am running, and it's a late entry. I wasn't planning on running, but I was asked to run. And when the news became solid that Steve wasn't going to run, I said, okay, I'll do it. So I started really late. I only announced like 3 weeks ago. Started putting together the team and putting together the website and stuff like that in late December or early December, but just announced recently. And the good news is that part of why Steve Boyd didn't win, a big part of why he didn't win in 24, TC, is because of all the nonsense that the party machine at the state level, at the congressional district level, at the county level, and all around the state of Minnesota did to interfere in the 7th Congressional District in 2024. And it all centers on Otter Tail County,
which is you wouldn't possibly be talking about Otter Tail County.
Well, and Otter Tail is the largest county in the 7th Congressional District with the most delegates. And so that's the center of gravity. And Michelle Fishbach is smart enough to know that. And unfortunately for her, the Otter Tail delegates hate her. So that's the good news for me, is that I'm not going to take them.
Stand up for them.
Well, absolutely not. She didn't stand up for them then. She's not standing up for them now. And I'm not going to take any of them for granted, but they know that I am a grassroots guy like them. And that's why I'm confident that I have an opportunity here and a good chance of at least blocking the endorsement, TC. I have a very good chance of denying a sitting member of Congress for her second cycle in a row not to get the endorsement of the party. And I might even beat her. Which then, of course, after that, she's going to ignore the process and she's going to go on to the primary anyway, which it's such a weird topic, TC, because all of the establishment politicians, all of the establishment party people, they're very pious in talking about, we must respect the endorsement. And I agree. I'm all about abiding the endorsement. And I've already stated publicly that whether I win or lose, I will abide the decision of the delegates coming up here in a few months in late April. But I guarantee you, I'll state $1,000 right now that if Michelle Fishbach doesn't win the endorsement, or it deadlocks, or I win it, she's still going to go on to the primary. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Will you abide by the endorsement process?
I will, but I will offer this caveat, which is that I will allow myself an exception if there is substantial cheating. And I have been the victim of cheating and shenanigans and nonsense in two previous attempts. And I'm not talking about the vague nonsense that, for instance, State Representative Eric Pratt alleged in 2022 when he got his butt handed to him by, he had an upstart grassroots candidate crush him for the endorsement, and he didn't respect that, and he ran anyway and defeated her in the primary. You have State Senator Paul Utke, who did the same thing in 2022 when Brett Bussman crushed him for the endorsement, and Paul didn't respect that either. So there's this long history, TC, of incumbent elected politicians in Minnesota claiming to respect the endorsement, claiming to respect the delegates, and then when they get destroyed, they run anyway. In my case, I was the challenger and was subject to wholesale cheating and disgusting behavior by the party machine. And in those two cases, I decided to not respect the endorsement process because of how it was conducted.
Do you think you guys have things locked down in the 7th district with everything that's been going on to be able to trust the process this time, or do you just want to, skip the endorsement process and go straight to the primary? Because I mean, the 7th district is a freaking mess right now, dude.
Yeah, we haven't touched on that yet. I mean, the answer to your question is it's my intention right now as I talk to your audience and going forward to respect the process. The problem, TC, is I don't know what the process is going to look like. The 7th is divided right now. We have the Brett Bussman side, which I assume is going to have an endorsing convention, but I don't know what that looks like. And then you have the other side who's going to have one, and I think I intend to participate in both, but I don't know what that's going to look like. But my intent right now is to respect it. But yeah, it's a big mess going forward.
Yeah, I think you have. Yeah, you got your work cut out for you with Minnesota politics. We got a Bruce Johnson here. I don't know Bruce. We also had we've had a lot of people tuning in. We've had quite a few people watching. No fear. Don't worry. You haven't said anything too terrible yet. But when you need to, so which, and this is the truth. And I say this to every single person who's running as a Republican or as a Democrat right now. You are going to have to pull in, because I don't think the 7th district is running any libertarians for Congress. And the libertarians are not running anybody for statewide office as far as the Senate goes. So that means that whoever wants to win this district in the general election is going to have to pull libertarian votes. You're going to have to pull libertarian votes. There's no two ways about it. Without the libertarian vote, you can't beat a DFL candidate. If a well-mounted DFL.
Not in the 7th. Not in the 7th. The 7th.
You don't think the 7th could go to a Democrat this year?
No, and I don't say that with any disrespect to my libertarian brothers, but the 7th is.
I don't know, Dave. Man, it's the midterms are going to be a bloodbath.
I agree. I agree.
Including Minnesota, they're going to be a bloodbath. It is. There will be a red wave. It'll be the blood of all the people who have been sacrificed because of the MAGA agenda and the abandonment of the MAGA agenda. Dave, I don't know, man. You may have your work cut out for you unless the Democrats just aren't running anybody.
Well, they are running somebody. So it's an interesting confluence of issues this time, TC. In 22 and 24. When Michelle Fishbach easily, sailed to victory in the general election, she had two, nobody candidates, and I don't mean that with any disrespect, but they didn't have the party with them. They didn't have any resources. This year, I don't remember her name at the moment, but you have a current state legislator in House District 4A or 4B down in the Moorhead area. Her name is just slipping my mind at the moment, but she is a declared candidate for U.S. House in CD7. Then you have another outsider named Eric Osberg. Eric's been running for like a year and a half. Kudos to him. He's been to every single county multiple times. And then you have this legislator jumping in at the last second. So I don't know who it's going to be. If I had to guess, I would guess it's going to be her. But still, we're an R+18 or R+20 district. And in these two previous cycles, Fishbach got it 70-30 TC, not because she's some sort of political genius, but because I think of the demographics. So that's my perspective, but I am vying for the libertarian vote. And, I do have acquaintance with the leaders of that party in Minnesota.
Yeah, I can't imagine who you might be speaking to. But here's me being really hard on you.
Sure.
I I think to some degree that you see this R plus 18 as an insurmountable amount of votes um, for the Democrats to overcome.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people out there who maybe in the past voted Republican because they saw it as, hey, like this is our hope to, do something, that have had that wind knocked out of them. It's been a punch in the gut for a lot of people for the last year and a half, and last year especially. It's been a punch in the gut to see so many of the things that they said they were voting for at that upper echelon. I hate the way people view it, but they see it as the president being the top, and then everybody else underneath is, you just got to fall in line. My personal is bottom up. I think the most important elections are locally, and all the best decisions are made at the local level. That's where they should be made. But a lot of people don't see it that way, and a lot of those people may choose to stay home this year and not vote at all, especially for federal office. I think that opens a window for the Democrats to take more districts this year. I don't think that 17 plus is as solid as you and others may see it to be, and I think it's going to be very important for people to absolutely be convinced. Like, I am your Republican, libertarian leaning candidate, and I will fight against, the surveillance state. I will fight against Palantir. I will fight against funding all these foreign wars. I will fight against funding these other, countries. And I will not stand behind a, what everybody in their right minds views as a genocide for the last 2 years. And if they don't hear that from people, they may just say, screw it, I'm staying home. And that hurts the Republicans more than it hurts the Democrats this go around.
Well, I agree with you. Now that you've said all that, I do agree with you that there is a substantial risk there, but that's why it's good for me. You're not going to hear any of that from Fishbach ever. And so if she's the candidate, if she's on the ballot this November, I think that bloody bloodbath vision that you gave us earlier is a possibility. My hope is that enough folks will see and hear and believe me that I am a part of the Rebel Alliance. I am a member of the Thomas Jefferson, Ron Paul, Thomas Massie conservative libertarian wing of the Republican Party, and I'm different from the mainstream Republicans that these younger folks who are discouraged, TC, that they are so discouraged about. I mean, what was the biggest issue a year ago coming into this new administration? It was Doge, and how excited the young folks were. Hey, we're going to get rid of all this garbage that's costing us so much in our taxes, and it's completely fizzled. And I can understand why they're discouraged.
That, and a lot of people just like to say Doge. It sounds cool.
It does.
We're at a minute, basically an hour 40.
I have plenty of time.
Well, I know you do, but sometimes you get to the TLDR aspect of a show.
Yeah.
It's like, I was very. I don't know if you saw. I opened the door for you there. That's what I did. And you walked through. So good on you. Give everybody kind of this 5,000 foot overview of who you are philosophically and where you're at philosophically, and what makes you a prime candidate for the liberty leaning, libertarian minded and traditional conservative Republicans. What sets you apart, not only from Fishbach, but from whoever the DFL is going to run at you when you get the endorsement and the nomination?
Well, when I think about the federal government, TC, I think I dream and fantasize about getting rid of as much of it as possible. I don't think you hear too many politicians talk about that. I don't think you hear too many Republicans talk about that. One of the unfortunate realities in my mind is that most Republican politicians, especially at the federal level, want to, and in fact, spend as much money as the Democrats do. They just tend to focus differently on slightly different priorities. You know, if the Republicans are spending it all on, you know, foreign policy and defense and whatever, then the Democrats are spending it all on green stuff and more wars and so forth. The differences probably aren't that substantial. But, you know, when I look at the federal government, I see that easily 80+% of the money that we spend and the agencies and departments and bureaus and commissions and everything else are fundamentally at their beginning unconstitutional. They shouldn't exist. Most of what we're doing at the federal level, we shouldn't be doing at all. Never mind reforming it or making it better or making it more efficient. It shouldn't exist. And so if I enter Congress, I don't mean to hammer on the name Massie too much, but
I did that on purpose. I wanted to give you that.
my aim is to go to Washington, D.C. and to represent the people of Western Minnesota. And I mean all of them. I don't mean just the Republicans. I mean all of them. And I want to do three things. One, I want to have a much better and a much different voting record than Representative Fishbach. I'm going to vote no on just about everything because most of the bills that come up are garbage. They're either last minute stuff that leadership comes up with behind closed doors. There have been no public hearings about it. Or if there were, they had hearings and then you get 5 minutes to look at it before they want you to vote. Well, I'll just let Speaker Johnson and everybody else know and Steve Scalise and all the other leadership know. I'll be friendly about it. I'll smile, but I'll say, look, if you guys continue to do things the way this is, you can depend on my vote being no every single time. We have to get back to regular order. That's where you have these bills in committee, TC, where you have experts on my side, you have experts on the Democrat side, give testimony as to why this bill would be good or bad. And then, you know, you talk to your constituents, you have days and weeks and maybe longer to talk to your constituents about what they think about the bill. And then you get to a vote on it eventually. But you've seen it, you know, every summer Congress goes on this super long vacation. And then they come back from the vacation in late September or late August, and they've got like 5 weeks to pass 12 appropriations bills. And then there's the looming shutdowns and all these.
Uh-oh.
Ooh,
Yeah, you cut out again.
Can you hear me and see me?
I can hear you, can't see you.
All right, should I log out again?
Just real quick and then come back in and finish your comment. Don't know why that keeps happening, folks. I wonder if he got a phone call. I bet he got a phone call. That happens at times. I forget to tell people. I forget to tell people to turn off your notifications because sometimes if you get a phone call or a text message or something, that'll cause that to happen. So
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we have all these manufactured crises, and we have federal laws right now, TC, that require all this, you know, regular order that I mentioned earlier. They've been on the books since the mid 1970s. So every year by April 15th and no later than that, both the House and the Senate are supposed to pass a unified budget resolution for the following fiscal year. We haven't done that in decades. And then by June 15th, you're supposed to have all 12 appropriations bills passed in both chambers, the House and the Senate, so that conference committee can go over them over the summer and forward them to the president for signature well before the new fiscal year starts on October 1st. We haven't done that since 2000 or 2001, and we haven't balanced the budget since then. So I am a dramatically different Republican. Voters can take heart that, you know, my intention is to go to Congress and try to steer the ship in the right direction, not go to cocktail parties and smile at leadership. That's not why I want to go there.
Yeah. You have effectively set yourself up to win the endorsement. Hopefully win in the general, only to then have somebody campaign against you because you don't vote 100% with the Republicans if it's not necessary. So I'm not talking about a particular person, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. So.
91%, right?
Yeah. You could vote 91%, but if it's not 100%, then you need to be unseated. So it was great seeing you run for office. Good job. Tell everybody where they could find you, and it's all the links are in the description, but just for those who don't look at the description, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, I put my resources down here. Oh, there it is. Okay. So At D Hughes Congress is X. Hughes
We
for
call that
Congress.
Twix here, by the way.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, because you get the left and the right bar, and so we call it Twix. Twitter and so.
I think it's Dave Hughes. What is it? Dave Hughes for Congress. Dave Hughes for Congress on Facebook, and the website is votedavehughes.com. You'll see my cell phone number out there somewhere, and any of your listeners and viewers who want to call me, feel free to call me anytime about anything. Happy to answer questions about anything.
He will talk. Trust me. He can talk. You got a campaign manager and all that lined up?
Well, I wasn't thinking I would need one because my late friend Jim Hagedorn toward the end there had learned enough that he could run his own campaign, and so I was thinking that this is not my first time to the rodeo, but I had a great conversation just yesterday with somebody who may be joining my effort here shortly, and he's going to bring along with him a whole cadre of capability.
Yeah. Go out there and spend a lot of money and hire a media personality.
Well, that's the problem is these consultant teams are very competent but very expensive.
I know I've seen some. I don't know if I'd call them competent. But no, I appreciate that. And tell your family I'm very thankful that they were willing to give up some time with you this afternoon and into the evening. And I will let you watch from the green room as I close. I promise I will not say anything worse than I have already said that will ruin you, but I will make sure that everybody knows that they're my views and my views alone. So even though we do share a lot in common, I really appreciate your time, Dave. And I know that you had not done a long form like this ever. And I hope that you get the opportunity to do other long forms because they're very important. So
I appreciate it, TC. It was great. And yeah, this is the longest interview I've ever had, and really enjoyed it because it didn't feel rushed and didn't feel like I needed to say a bunch of stuff quick before you cut me off. So I appreciate it.
Well, I try to let people talk. I go on little rants once in a while, but if it, just to give you an idea, this isn't like the number one, performing that I've ever had, but we are well over 650 people have watched at least some segment of the show or another. So, and that's just on my end. I don't know what the guys over at the New Prisoners had on their stream, but we've had people watching on their stream as well. So, it's been very, very enjoyable to have you on, and I look forward to watching where this goes from here. And we'll probably have to have you back on again once you've gone further into the endorsement process. So
thank you very much, TC. And if I do make it to Congress, I definitely want to be on your show again, and I want you to hold my feet to the fire. Okay.
I thought you were going to hire me to be one of your staffers.
Well, we can talk.
Oh, could you imagine me in DC? I would. Well, that would be terrible.
You could be my press secretary. What do you think of that?
Oh, I would. There would no. He will not say that for you. No, he will. No, get out.
Just say no to everything.
That would be every press conference. No, get out. You there in the back with a show of only 10 people. Yes. What do you want to ask? All right, Dave. I will let you watch from the green room while I embarrass myself in the close now.
All right. Take care.
Folks, this Dave. I really appreciate everybody that has watched. I hope that you will share this out. I will obviously be doing what I always do, which is I will clip out moments to share some of the highlights. But please do send people. If you're watching this on playback and you like what I do and you want to support me, please, you can hit a super thank you, super chat. You can cash at me because it takes time and it takes money, and this is an investment, folks. And I don't feel bad. For asking you to support the show. So you can cash at me at $MBRR Media. And I really, and I'm thankful for people who have listened and interacted, even the people that were disagreeing throughout, where we were talking about geopolitical Zionist Israel. Someday I'll do another show about the truth, about how we ended up where we are with Zionism and AIPAC and all of that in the U.S. That's, a show where I can bring somebody else on to have those conversations. I have some connections with the Libertarian Institute, and I might be able to at some point maybe land Daryl Cooper. I am working on that. I think that would be a great conversation. So, but I know that Daryl's also tired of talking about Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem. And if you haven't yet listened to that podcast, it's like I said, it's 25 plus hours long, but it's worth it if you really give a darn about truth, historical truth. Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem by Martyr Made podcast is absolutely a must listen. Guys, check out Dave's campaign. If you're interested in supporting a truly libertarian leaning candidate in the GOP, support him, help him with his campaign. He's going to need some financial support to make this run. And he's a solid guy, and he gives a darn about the people in his district. And I know that for a fact, and he cares about other people as well. He is interested in doing the right thing. I never do official endorsements because I don't want to ruin people's, chances in running for office. But I will tell you, I know for a fact that Dave cares a lot more about his district than Michelle Fishbach does, at the very least. So basically, he just has to get up in the morning, and he's already won that fight. So I'm going to be doing more content. January is kind of my month off. I still put out some shows here and there and some shorts here and there, but January is my month off, even with the start of a new season, just because I need some downtime, and so I don't put out nearly as much stuff. But this conversation was very important to have, and we'll be looking to have the guys from the Truth Expedition. We were supposed to be on today, but we all had some things come up. So we're going to be doing another episode of Libertarian Lowdown with Mark and Gunnar from the Truth Expedition here in the next week. So I really appreciate you guys being here. Hit the like, hit the share. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Become a channel member here or on, what is that? Rumble. Yeah, Rumble. That's what it is. Check out Dave's stuff. And guys, now more than ever in our republic, in our country, it is very important for us to remember what I always end the show with. Fight for your freedom, it is yours. Fight for your liberty, it belongs to you. And until next time, sic semper tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30. Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at